The trade rumors are buzzing as the trade deadline approaches. Matt and I are making some bold predictions on where some of the biggest names in the game will end up on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominic Martino. You can find me on Twitter at DonMartinoFB. Here, as always, with my brother, my co-host, my partner in crime, Matthew Ine. And you can find him on Twitter at Matthew_Ine. If you're listening on a platform like Apple or Spotify that allows 5-star ratings or reviews, we would truly appreciate it if you could do that for us. And if you're watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit that little bell below. Subscribe to the channel and gives you notification every time we drop a new episode. And lastly, but most importantly to Matt and I, guys, give us a chance on the Subtext platform. Through Subtext, it's an in-depth, personalized experience through text messaging alerts right to your phone, offering so much more than we can in this 30-minute episode. And if you're looking for the link, when you give us a chance on Subtext, you can find it in the bio wherever you're listening or watching, or if not, it's available on any of our social media platforms. And Supplyhouse.com is the most reliable way to get parts fast. Shop for your next plumbing, HVAC, or electrical job and get fast shipping from coast to coast at Supplyhouse.com. And this is always a fun episode. We truly love doing this one. We're doing some trade deadline predictions. We got 10 of the biggest names in the game that are on the trading block. And it's just going to be really fun. Matt, why don't you take us away with one of these big names first?
All right. Let's talk about probably the biggest name to me, at least in this, the guy that probably has the most potential to kind of make a difference on a team, and that's Luis Robert. There's a lot of fits for him this year, funny enough. You look at it, the Philadelphia Phillies need a center fielder. Somebody that honestly isn't going to be a roster clock when they get up to the plate, like how they have with like Rojas and Pache, who keep playing great defense, or Brandon Marsh. They play great defense, but at the same time, their bat sometimes is a little lackluster and doesn't, produce as much as you like. Yes, Marsh is a little bit more impactful, but doesn't play every day because he's not as good as defensively as the other two. Now, Luis Robert is an everyday player. He has a fantastic glove. He's fantastic in center field. He fits that need. Plus, he is a better bat, hands down. He could hit 40. He could hit for average. He could steal bases. And the runs and ribbies would be absolutely bananas with the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, here's the other options. You also have the Dodgers, who need an outfielder because that outfield is absolutely ugly. Funny enough, for a team that's so stacked, they move Mookie Betts inside. Obviously, he's hurt right now. All the bats are pretty much inside or playing DH. There's nobody really out there in the outfield that's truly impressive. So Luis Robert would fit in nicely to be an everyday player there. You also could look at like the Cleveland Guardians, their outfield, especially center field specifically. They have Angel Martinez out there. I'm not really like a big fan of him. Luis Robert would be a way better fit there. Obviously, they have the best out of the three teams I've talked about. I feel like the best minor league system, the most guys that can kind of give up. So I feel like they're probably the top contender. But ultimately, you all know that the Dodgers are going to dodge, or the Phillies are going to try and spend their way to the top, and they do have some big names. I just don't know if they're going to spend the house on it. Maybe now that Miller has the faction finger that we're going to talk about later, maybe they're willing to move all their chips towards Luis Robert versus going after a relief pitcher. So we'll see. I have a feeling they'll end up on the Dodgers, unfortunately.
So, Matt, I'm going Phillies. I'm going Phillies with this one.
I like it.
Yeah, I know you're over there in Philly, and we kind of, you touched on it a bit. As you said, I like the fit there. They can use a boost defensively. That would definitely help the pitching out as well. And I think for Luis Robert in general, just a guy that it really needs a change of scenery, needs to go play for a contender. And, Philly just being one of the best teams in all of baseball, the counting stats are going to go up. I think it's going to breathe some, fresh life into Luis Robert. I think he's going to be running, hitting for power. The batting average, I hope, comes up because he's well below his career mark of 273. This year, Luis Robert's hitting a putrid 227. The underlying stuff doesn't really look great, but like I said, when you go to from a team that literally is on track to be one of the worst in baseball history to one of the best in the whole game. Just going to see a different guy with Luis Robert, because I wouldn't say there's like a 90% chance he's going to get traded. And even at that, like an 80% chance that he's going to go to a very good team. So with Luis Robert, definitely excited to see what the trade deadline brings for him. Let's go with, another really huge name. Let's talk some Vladimir Guerrero Jr., currently with those Toronto Blue Jays, but another big name that could be on the move. And, my prediction, I think Vladdy goes to those Astros. Since Jose Abreu is no longer with the team, and they wasted a whole bunch of money there on Abreu, Houston, kind of in the thick of it right now, have a chance to, make a run at another championship. And what a better way to, solidify things, especially with Kyle Tucker being out for the foreseeable future, than to go and get one of the best young first basemen in the whole game. They currently have John Singleton slotted in at first base, so that would be a huge improvement there. And Vladdy's just been on a tear, hitting close to 300 over the past month, a bunch of home runs. He's just been really good, and that was not including today when we're recording. It was 5 home runs in his last 6 games. Or wait, actually, 5 home runs in his last 6 games. So Vladdy, I think, is already doing it. Doesn't need the trade to wake up. But once he goes to a better team, the RBIs are going to go up. And I really think sky can be the limit for Vladdy on a contender like Houston in that middle of that lineup.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely a great fit. I could totally see it too. That's the first team that came to mind. The struggles that they had with Jose Abreu to begin the season and stuff like that just kind of all adds up to like, hey, they need to go out and acquire a first baseman. So the only thing I could say is what I would make me feel like, okay, maybe it might not happen is they might not want to trade in division. Even though it's not their direct division, they might want to send him over to the NL. And with that, it might be Milwaukee. They need a first baseman. They're rolling out with Jake Bauers right now. And truthfully, I mean, you choose Vladimir Guerrero Jr. every time over Bauers. So, that I could also see. And they do also have a decent farm system to give up some pieces to go ahead and go out and get Vlad. But the other thing that I think is going to be where this player actually lands on Houston is Pete Alonso, our next guy. I think he actually ends up there. They're not going to trade in division at all. Mets are super sour like that, and Steve Cohen's a nut job. So, if anything, the only thing, Pete Alonso is going to have to do is change city and not even color of his jersey, which I think will be a little bit easier for him. He won't get confused to who he throws the ball to. But, I think Pete Alonso, is a better fit there. He's kind of more of the bigger bat that they want. And I think that he'll be way more successful there with all the players around them. And, ultimately, I think that's probably the best fit. They're looking for a lot of prospects. Astros have quite a few. I think Lopervito was brought up specifically to kind of showcase what he can do in the bigs. I have a feeling he's going to end up in a trade wherever Houston decides to make the move. But he, they showcased him well and he was successful. So I have a feeling that since he plays first and outfield, the Mets are going to try and be all over that.
So I'm going to kind of flip-flop here. So obviously I had Vlad on the Astros. I'm going with the Astros' direct competitor in the AL West. Let's go with the Seattle Mariners, right? Another team that could really use a first baseman. Right now, they're running out Tyler Locklear, which, doesn't really inspire a lot of confidence. Julio is injured. He's going to be out for a little bit with that ankle. So, while they're in the middle of this fight, I think Seattle's definitely going to add a bat. I don't know if they're going to want to go as big as Pete Alonso, but Seattle does have the prospects to go out and, get a big trade like this done. And in Seattle, it's one of the tougher parks to hit in, but a guy like Pete Alonso that hits the ball so far, it doesn't even really matter for him. So it's not really going to, sap his power or anything like that. And I think Seattle at least should be thinking about that when they're going out and, going to most likely try and acquire a big bat. Is, Alonso launches the ball. We're not really going to have to worry about, him not hitting home runs. But I think Seattle desperately needs a guy like this in their lineup if they're going to make a run for it at all. Right now, they're 53 and 51. They're only a game behind Houston. So I really could see Seattle making a push and going all in for a guy like Pete Alonso. And I think Pete Alonso is another guy. Might kind of just need a fresh, outlook on things. I know the Mets are in pushing right now. They're going for it. But I don't know. Just something about it. I think Pete Alonso, I don't know if he really wants to be there anymore. But with that being said, With that being said, coming up next, we have a couple more really great hitters, and then we're moving into some all-star caliber pitchers, and once again, see where Matt and I think they're going coming up next. This episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. With summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you always secretly wanted to learn more about. Yes, we're talking about your rival cities. With hotels, bed and breakfasts, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com, you might just find your perfect stay, even in your baseball's rival city. From hotels that look over stadiums to family-friendly resorts, Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. for your summer travel this MLB season. And guys, once again, always love to talk about Camden Yards when I'm talking about Booking.com because you know what? I have even been made a fan of my rival city going to Camden Yards. I am a Yankee fan, if you guys did not know. And just going over there, beautiful time, great team, love to watch competitive baseball. So you know what? The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com on the site or in the Booking.com app. And then I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sporting like I want them to. But FanDuel keeps the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everybody, every day, all summer long. So, guys, we need to check out FanDuel. There's so many great, interesting bets that they have when it comes to MLB. And this summer, there's not a lot going on. So why don't you head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer now? And are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch over to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for your everyday to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And then once again, Matt and I are introducing the Locked On Fantasy Baseball Podcast Diamond Club on the Subtext platform, your ultimate fantasy baseball companion. As this season continues to unfold, you can rely on us for dynamic content, get real-time alerts right to your phone, including waiver wire rankings, instant call-up notification, injury reactions, and a whole lot more. Stay ahead of your fantasy league by joining the Diamond Club on Subtext, where the path to your victories begin. Subscribe now and elevate your fantasy baseball experience to a new level. Woo. And Matt, as you know, brother, that is always a lot in a row. So I'm going to pass this next guy off to you, if that is all right.
Got you. And you know what? You did a fantastic job. And we're going to talk about Randy Arozarena now. Guy that started off really slow, but has been absolutely stellar over the last couple weeks, honestly, especially this last week. He has 6 runs, 3 bombs, 5 ribs, has 2 stolen bases and batting .381. I think somebody knows they're about to get traded and is probably pretty excited, honestly. So, the possible landing spots for Randy, honestly, I think is Cleveland for sure. They desperately, like I was saying at the top, when it came to Luis Robert, they desperately need a center fielder. I was saying, Angel Martinez, he's not a guy that you truly want to trust out there. They need another bat in that lineup in general. They're getting it done with, obviously Jose Ramirez and Josh Naylor, leading the charge. Quan has been pretty successful, but you need somebody that's going to be another difference maker in the lineup, and that very well could be Randy Arozarena. I feel like it's a fantastic fit. But of course, I got to give you another place for him to land. And this one's a little bit more of like a if or maybe. And it's probably the Dodgers as well. I feel like the Dodgers are looking for another outfielder as well. They have Teoscar Hernandez, but Teoscar can move anywhere. So can Randy. They both play great defense. They both are really good gloves. So, I could totally see him fitting in there. He fits in that Dodgers culture for sure. So that would be my dark horse in the race for Randy Arozarena. It's just a matter of who's going to pay more. Cleveland Guardians could totally move Manzardo and send him right back to where he came from, funny enough, or, and just do a little trade. But, it'll be very interesting to see where he ends up ending up landing.
So Matt basically took my whole take right there. Was going to do the whole Cleveland Guardians thing. Matt, oddly enough, I even had the whole Manzardo going back speech planned. So absolutely fantastic take. I really don't have
Thank you.
too much else to add there. And I even love the caveat of him possibly going to the Dodgers. You know what's funny is I don't actually have anyone specifically on my list going to the Dodgers today, but I do know they will wind up with one of these, big names, surprisingly enough, and maybe even this next guy. Let's talk a little Jazz Chisholm. I don't have him specifically going to the Dodgers, but I can see that fit happening. I actually have Jazz coming to my New York Yankees. I just think we need somebody like him in the locker room. I think the Yankees desperately need it. I don't think we have an energy guy. I don't think there's somebody in that locker room that really brings the energy every day, that's really getting everybody all excited, to go out there and play and win games. And I think he fits in the outfield. He could even move around, play some second base if needed. You move Glaber around on guys' days off and stuff like that. So I think Jazz another guy. I will say this probably like 10 more times on today's episode. I know I've already said it 10 times. Jazz, another guy that's been on his team for a very long time. I think he would get excited to come play in New York on the big time stage. The guy's been on cover of MLB The Show. He loves to get all dressed up. If you don't know a lot about Jazz, the dyed hair, the earrings would fit perfectly in the limelight in New York. And I don't think he's the kind of guy that would shy away from it. So I think it's a really good fit for not only Jazz himself, but for the Yankees, just to get an energy guy that can steal bases, hit home runs. And, the counting stats could be pretty good playing on a very good Yankees team as well.
So, I like it, but I don't at the same time, because I don't see the Yankees honestly giving up a prospect that it would take to get Jazz. They're going to ask for the Martian. They're going to ask for Spencer Jones.
They were talking about trading the Martian a little bit.
I don't think they do. I mean, that's the only way it's going to get done because, he is MLB ready, and essentially acquiring a guy like Jazz Chisholm is a straight up roadblock. You pretty much just, had a tree fall literally in the road because he ain't getting over it. So unless they move him the second, which I would love then for fantasy and for the Yankees. Sorry, I somehow ended up with the hiccups. But Jazz Chisholm, I think, is more likely to land on the Kansas City Royals. They desperately need a center fielder as well. They're in the mix for the playoffs right now. They're sitting at what, 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth place. And honestly, I mean, I could totally see where they're trying to make a run for it. Bobby Witt Jr. trying to make his first playoffs, along with Vinny P starting to hit up. Sorry, these damn hiccups. Ultimately, I think Jazz would be a great fit there as well. It's another big market team, funny enough. So I think that Jazz would be a great fit on either team, and I honestly prefer to see him on Kansas City. I think that it would help fantasy a lot for Vinny P and Bobby Witt, and also to drive that team to a new level for both Jazz as well. So I think that would be the landing spot. Sorry, this next guy here is Tarik Skubal, Dom's boy, and most of our boys, because Skubal's awesome.
The pterodactyl.
Yes, the pterodactyl. I eventually have to get an awesome drop in here for him, but let's get into it. I could totally see him ending up in the Dodgers. There's a lot of talk around him. The Dodgers are in on everybody. That's just how they roll. Like they don't have enough pitching as it is. They have Walker Buehler returning soon. They have Kershaw just returning. Glasnow just returning. They called up River Ryan, Yamamoto,
Bobby Miller, Gavin Stone.
Right, and all staples in the rotation too. So I don't know what they do unless they trade their young guys. Like, is River going to get moved? Is that why he was called up? Is Stone going to get moved? Because you'll get a lot for him. There's a lot of pieces that are attractive to move that the Dodgers have in the pitching arsenal that could probably get this job done. But it's a matter of, is Detroit actually going to move him is the question. And honestly, if I had a pick based off of how their young guys are performing on the batter's end at the plate, and I would probably say no. I think he ends up staying where he is, and I don't see him moving at all. I think that Detroit is finally seeing that the fact that there might be a window for them to be a competitor in the next year or so, with the way Green has progressed, the way Colt Keith has taken off this second half, and there's quite a few other prospects that are coming up soon for the Detroit Tigers that I think are going to really bolster this lineup, and they're going to be a dangerous threat in the next year or two. Yeah.
Yeah. So I totally see what you're saying there when it comes to Skubal and the Tigers, and they're being competitive this year. If you guys haven't been paying attention, the Tigers are 51-53. You know, they're not, you know, they're not a slouch. They're not just a team you beat up on anymore. So I can see that, but I also see the other side of the thing where Detroit kind of just sells all out and, you know, kind of comes in play with the next guy we're going to talk about as well. But for Tarik Skubal specifically, I have a sexy team for him to go to. I have him going to Baltimore, man. You know, Grayson Rodriguez is not the guy we expected him to be, at least for this year. He's still fairly young, 24 years old, almost 25. So there's time for him to grow. But Baltimore's window is here. Baltimore's window to win is honestly this year. And they have, if any team has the prospects to go out and get one of the best pitchers in the game, like Tarik Skubal, it's Baltimore.
And they just called up Norby for that too, I might add.
Exactly. So we've seen the Kausers, we've seen the Norbys, Kobe Mayo's on his way. We seen the Kerstads. So there's just so many names that, you know, Baltimore gives up 2 or 3 of these guys. They're still very prospect rich, even if they do. And then you get, you know, one of the top 5 pitchers in all of baseball to pair with Corbin Burns. That's a deadly 1-2 in the playoffs. So that's where I have him going. But guys, coming up next, we have a bunch of great pitchers, but you got to stick around for that.
Get supplies from the site that made for skilled trades. Supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, electrical, and products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest products info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get expert support from industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skill trade can get competitive edge by joining the supplyhouse.com's free Trade Master program. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from the free membership at supplyhouse.com. Order plumbing, HVAC, electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks on supplyhouse.com. Wow. Well, I just keep hiccuping away, but yeah. Dom, can you please take this next guy for a sec, please?
Yeah, no, I sure can. And I did just want to mention one other thing with the Orioles and Skubal is that they have so many injuries. Means and all the other guys go down. It's just been tough for them. But let's move on to actually another Detroit pitcher. Let's talk some Jack Flaherty. And honestly, if you guys haven't been paying attention, Jack Flaherty is doing vintage Jack Flaherty stuff. I just want to point it out. On the year, 18 starts for Flaherty, 7 wins, 2.95 ERA, 0.96 WHIP, 106 innings, 133 Ks. And I will say this: I have Jack Flaherty on almost all my teams. I'm a big fan. I have him going to Houston. I have him going to those Astros. Astros, another team that have suffered a plethora of injuries when it comes to starting pitching, and a team that we always see noisy around the trade deadline. They have Aaron Getty in there. They have Jake Bloss starting for them. I like Valdez Blanco and Hunter Brown, but still, I don't know if that is enough for them to get it done, especially with Hunter Brown being up and down. Valdez, another guy's been up and down, and Blanco, we don't know if we could trust him. If they can go out a guy and get Flaherty, who has a proven track record, you know, it looks like he's figuring it back out. He's still fairly young, a guy that they can, you know, have anchoring this rotation for the next couple of years, possibly. I really do like me some Jack Flaherty, and if he does go to Houston, those win potential goes through the roof.
No, I actually like that a lot. It's a great landing spot entirely. I think that he gets moved too because he was kind of like a last ditch effort to see if he had anything left in the tank, because when he left St. Louis, he was ugly. But I would prefer him to go there for fantasy, but what I actually think he's going to end up landing is Kansas City as well. You know, they're in desperate need of a pitcher. They're rolling out with Lugo and Reagans, who has been kind of up and down this season. Alec Marsh has been somewhat, you know, valuable at times. But then the bottom of it is like Michael Waka and Brady Singer, and those aren't guys that I feel comfortable going into the playoffs with. Whereas you could add Jack Flaherty into this, he could be a strong like 2B, honestly. Whereas, we also know that Seth Lugo could take that step back as well. So, Jack Flaherty will be that staple in that rotation as well. So I think that he'll kind of end up there, if anything, than anywhere else. But this next guy here is very interesting. And the stuff that I'm reading about him is kind of like interesting. So it's Garrett Crochet of the Chicago White Sox. As of today, he's definitely going to be on another team come the 30th. And here's where I'm looking at it. This is the most innings he's ever pitched in his career. And you know what? A lot of teams are talking about, obviously going out there and acquire him. The White Sox have already said they want to move him. And what the problem is Crochet doesn't want to come out of the bullpen. And if he does, he wants to get paid. He wants an extension that's going to be there. And that's a little what makes him kind of unattractive to teams. Like, okay, look, he's not going to play for us once we put him on an innings limit. We're going to have to send him down. He's not going to come out of the bullpen. So that's going to hurt his stock in general, unless there's a team out there. So it's going to have to be a team that is willing to pay. So this is a weird take on it. And this is what I kind of like. I think the Phillies will do it. They'll give him an extension. They need the steady relief in the bullpen. And he'll be a great player for that because they have a couple solid starters. And then he could work his way into the starting rotation next year where they'll be feeling okay to give him a little bit more leash and probably hit about 150, 160 innings next year. I think that's one of the most probable landing spots because it kind of kills two birds, one stone this year for them. They acquire the relief pitcher and they'll probably get him cheaper than anything else because his price is going to be low because of what he's demanding. And then two, it kind of then builds him up for next year. So I think Crochet ends up as a Yankee. I mean, not as a Yankee, as a Philly.
I hear you, brother. I have a very, very similar take, but I'm going with a different team for Mr. Garrett Crochet. I'm actually going to say he goes to Atlanta. Atlanta, they lost Strider. They lost Fried. Fried, not permanently. Strider, at least the rest of the year. And Garrett Crochet is only 25 years old. I could see them doing a sneaky, hey, we pay our players. We love to, keep guys around for a long time. So I could see them giving the young 25-year-old a contract when, they have Chris Sale, Morton, who are getting older. Like I said, Strider's 22. Even Max Fried's 30 years old. So they don't really have another young guy to pair with Strider. They have the prospects with Schwellenbach and Waldrip and, a couple other young starting pitchers. But we don't necessarily know how good those guys are going to be. There's still question marks when we've seen Garrett Crochet literally be one of the best pitchers in all of baseball this season, and all of the underlying stuff actually backs how good Crochet is. Mm-hmm. So I can see the Braves, a very analytical based team, seeing that and being like, what, there's a future with this guy. We pair him with Strider going forward, and that's our 1-2 punch. And honestly, if Crochet does go to the Braves, Mac, just a question. How high are we going to rank him next year? Is it like a top 15, 20 kind of pitcher for Crochet if he goes to Atlanta for next season?
I think more like 20 to 30. I think he'll probably end up being about 25 to 27 because I still need to see him do it again. He still needs to exceed, 140, 150 innings because, it's going to be more of a test that I'll actually be able to have this conversation once we see where he actually ends up finishing with how many innings and how he does in the playoffs when he's coming out of the bullpen. So it's going to be very interesting. Also, we might not get much exposure because Atlanta Braves sucks so bad in the playoffs that they are the biggest choke except for 1 year. Sorry, Atlanta fans, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. So, it's going to be interesting.
Very well said. Very well said, brother. Let's just jump into this next guy then. Let's talk about Jesus Luzardo. And I actually think I have a good landing spot for Luzardo as well, given the circumstances that he is banged up. I'm going with those Boston Red Sox. Another team that, they've been a little bit better with pitching. We've seen Houck, Pavetta, take step forwards. Bayo kind of hasn't been the guy. We thought Carter Crawford actually has been very good. But I think, once again, who's the anchor? Who's the guy that they're really hanging their hat on? I don't know if it's, a 28-year-old Carter Crawford, definitely not a 31-year-old Pavetta, and Houck's even 28. Maybe it's a Jesus Luzardo, a guy that they don't have to bring in right now this year. They're not necessarily going to be super competitive. They can wait a year for him to figure it out, get healthy, and, be, a guy that they can depend on. So I think Boston Red Sox is a good fit for Jesus Luzardo.
So I like that a lot. It's a very interesting, take. I like to see that. I think that'd probably be the better landing spot. But where I think he's actually going to land is the Minnesota Twins. They're in desperate need of another pitcher. Pablo Lopez has been really bad. Joe Ryan has been leading the charge in that rotation. Bailey Ober finally turned it around, but like the end of that rotation's kind of like weird. You got David Festa and Simon Wood Richardson. Festa is like, Uncle Fester when it comes to, being good and being relevant. So not good. And Wood Richardson's been up and down. Whereas, they're playing so well that they're making do with what they have, that they can also wait for him to come back probably in another month, because that's realistically what we're looking at. Is probably another month of Luzardo being out. Let him ramp up, and then they're really only going to care about the end result, and that's going to be the playoffs. And I think Luzardo will be a fantastic fit. They're a good team overall, and I think that Luzardo will be able to learn and see what Bailey Ober and Joe Ryan are doing over there, and have a nice young core. I don't think we have time for the last guy. So, Dom, if you have anything to add, let me know. If not, we get out of here. All right, guys, please like, subscribe, comment, rate, review. I want you guys to have a wonderful weekend, and it's going to be a crazy next couple of days. I'm super excited to go over who will get traded where. But guys, have a great weekend. Peace out.
See ya.